From America to Italy and all the way over to Japan, here are the top 10 most ruthless mafia bosses of all time. Welcome back, everybody. I'm your host. And today we're going to be taking a look at the top 10 most ruthless mafia bosses of all time. But before we get started, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already so you don't miss any of our awesome videos. Also, make sure to stick around until now. 1, because it's one of the most ruthless, cruel, and evil people ever. Number 10. Arnold Restivo. When you think of dangerous mafia bosses, you probably picture Italians and Sicilians. But over in the United States, specifically in the New York area, there was a crew running around causing just as much havoc as some of their Italian counterparts. And leading this crew was Arnold Restivo. The man is known for being one of the most violent members of the Bonanno crime family. He became the boss of the family in 1980, after Paul Castellano was assassinated. His leadership was characterized by extreme brutality and violence, which caused many other crime families to try and take him out. As a result, he was sent into hiding with the help of the FBI Witness Protection Program. He lived under the alias Dr. Anthony Sparrow until 2004, when he was finally found and arrested. He is currently serving a life sentence at a DX Florence, which houses some of the most deadly criminals in the world. No, not Matthias Pesci. There have been many high-ranking members of the Sicilian Mafia, but none were more important than Matthias Pesci. Not only was he a boss of the Mafia, but he was also a boss of bosses, acting as the head of the Sicilian Mafia Commission. He acted as an intermediary between the Italian Mafia and the American Mafia, working closely with the 5 American crime families. This made him one of the most powerful men in the world. However, he had a pretty bad habit of making enemies. Eventually his crimes caught up with him, and he was sentenced to 3 life sentences plus 26 years. He spent the rest of his life locked up until his death in 2004. No. 8. Michael Franzese. It might seem strange to have 2 members of the same crime family on this list, but that's how good the Bonanno crime family was at producing ruthless individuals. Michael Franzese was a capo regime in the Bonanno crime family and was once considered the richest mafia boss ever. At one point, he owned between $30 and $50 million worth of property, much of it purchased with dirty money. He earned his spot on this list by kidnapping and torturing a rival mafia member. Eventually, he was arrested and went to jail, where he served almost 7 years before being released. After his release, he worked with the government to bring down other mafia members and became a successful author and speaker. Number 7. Lucky Luciano. In the early 20th century, there was a man who went from being a small-time crook to becoming the most feared mafia boss of all time. His name was Charles Lucky Luciano. He completely reshaped organized crime in America and was responsible for some of the worst crimes committed by mobsters. He gained notoriety for being one of the main organizers of the 1929 Wall Street crash. And soon after, he would go on to play a major role in the creation of the notorious Murder, Inc. organization, which was responsible for hundreds of deaths. In 1936, he was convicted of prostitution and other charges and sentenced to 50 to 100 years in prison. He was released in 1946 and moved to Italy, where he lived under a false identity until his death in 1962. Number 6. Frank Thierry. After Lucky Luciano was sent to prison, another crime boss took over the reins of the Genovese crime family. That man was Frank Thierry. He ran the family alongside Vito Genovese and was extremely violent. During his time as boss, he was involved in hundreds of illegal activities, including gambling, narcotics trafficking, arson, extortion, and murder. He also continued the work started by Luciano in the creation of the Commission, which governed organized crime in the United States. Eventually, he was arrested and sentenced to 15 years in prison. He was released early in 1964 and continued his criminal career until his death in 1980. Number 5. Joseph Barbera. One of the most prolific mafia bosses of all time was Joseph Barbera. At one point, he was the boss of the Sicilian Mafia as well as a member of the Italian Commission. He led the Mafia during its most violent years and is believed to be responsible for hundreds of murders. During his trial, he was able to avoid prison time due to his cooperation with the police, but he was stripped of his citizenship and his passport. He then fled to Argentina, where he spent the rest of his life. Number 4. Vito Genovese. Vito Genovese was one of the most infamous mafia bosses of all time. He started out as a soldier in the Lucchese crime family and slowly climbed his way up the ladder. He was incredibly ambitious and wanted more power than what he could get in the Lucchese family. So he switched over to the Luciano crime family and eventually became its boss. While he was boss, he solidified his position by murdering several people. He also played a key role in the formation of the Italian-American Mafia Commission, which allowed him to gain control of the entire American Mafia. He was eventually arrested and charged with murder, conspiracy, and narcotics trafficking. He was sentenced to 15 years in prison and died before being released. No. 3. Bernardo Provenzano. Bernardo Provenzano was the longtime boss of the Sicilian Mafia and one of the most wanted fugitives in the world. He came to power in the late 1970s and ruled the Sicilian Mafia for decades. He was responsible for some of the most heinous crimes, including the massacres of 1993 and 2009. He was eventually captured and sentenced to life in prison, where he remained until his death in 2016. Number 2. Tommaso Buscetta. There has never been a more notorious mafia boss than Tommaso Buscetta. He was the highest-ranking mafia boss to ever turn state evidence against his former associates. He was involved in some of the most violent crimes committed by the Sicilian Mafia and was sentenced to life in prison. While in prison, he turned on his former friends and helped bring down several members of the Mafia. His testimony was instrumental in the prosecution of dozens of mobsters and helped bring an end to the Sicilian Mafia. No. 1. Matteo Messina Denaro. If you've thought taking down the Sicilian Mafia was easy, then you clearly haven't heard about Matteo Messina Denaro. He is the last boss of the Sicilian Mafia and one of the most ruthless men alive. He is responsible for hundreds of murders and has been on the run from the police for decades. Despite the efforts of the police, he has managed to evade capture. And even though he is in his 60s, he is still considered extremely dangerous. If you want to learn more about this man, check out our video on the most wanted mafia boss still alive. Thank you guys for watching. I've been your host, and we'll see you next time.